Greetings, YouTube! The Doctor is in. Dr. Urius Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons, and we got a new class and a bunch of subclasses and a bunch of new magic items and a bunch of new creatures kind of that came out in the new Pugilist supplement that is out from a third-party vendor for D&D. It's on D&D Beyond right now, and we are going to go over this awesome class. I'm so psyched about this. This is really what I feel like the monk kind of should have been. It's very monkish heavy, but it's not quite a monk. It's more like a fighter without weapons or with a few weapons. So we're going to go over this. Lots to talk about, lots to go through. Don't go anywhere and stay tuned. All right, before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like this video. Hit the like button if you have any questions or comments. Please leave a question or comment. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, and don't forget to share this video. And the Pugilist is coming to us, and I'm looking at it right now. It is coming to us from Sterling Vermin. That is the name of the third-party content creator that this came with. It seems like Wizards of the Coast is going to only be putting out third-party content licensed this year. We haven't got any announcements at all about any other content that actually is coming from Wizards of the Coast. The last one was an Eberron book that also was third-party. So, you know, we're waiting to hear, but I don't really have high hopes that Wizards actually going to come out with anything. But I'm very excited about this class. This class allows me to play any one of my favorite UFC fighters if I want. So let's get into the class and let's go through it. So here is the table of contents for the actual purchase that you get for the Pugilist class. It comes with the Pugilist core class itself. It comes with 6 different subclasses. There's a whole bunch of new magic items. There's a few new weapons, but not a lot. But there are a whole bunch of new magic items. And then there's some creatures, and then we get the credits. Now, one thing I have noticed when I look at this page versus this page here, which is the Pugilist class, if you go into the game rules and classes, if I go down here, we've got all the abilities racked and stacked by level, proficiency bonuses, things like that. But if we come down here, none of these abilities have a level next to them. However, if you go by the book itself, we have the core Pugilist class abilities. These are the core things that you get at first level, like hit dice and your saving throw proficiencies and skills and things. And then if you come down, here's the table, and it has links in it. It has hyperlinks, and then it lists the actual levels at which you get all of those items. So like at level 2, we get Moxie, but in the class feature, it just says Moxie. It doesn't give a level. So that is a difference. I've seen a few people give some comments about that. Just a minor thing. I want to go to the grade right away for this class. As a player, I am going to give this a straight up A. I love this class. I love all the things that this can do with all the kind of control and grappling and knocking things prone and the damage it can do, and you can still get a pretty ridiculous armor class out of this. As a DM, there are a few things in here that seem a little overpowered, and I would bump this down to a B from the DM's perspective, just because some of the abilities of the Pugilist class are a little bumped up. Now, I am not going to go over all of the subclasses in this. I'm going to go over the base class, and we're going to talk about the base class itself. We're going to talk about some race/species things that you can take, and I'm going to talk about some magic items. and maybe a few feats that you still might want to think about taking with this class too. All right, so let's get into it. Here is the base stuff. Your primary ability, of course, is strength. So with the monk, it's strength or dexterity, and you can use dex in lieu of strength for a lot of things. This class has a D10, which is the same as a fighter. So like I said, this is if you took all kind of the monk's mystical abilities away and you just left a lot of the monk abilities, the physical abilities, that's what the pugilist is. So it's got a D10, just like a fighter. Saving throw proficiencies are strength and con, and your primary stats are going to be strength and con. A lot of the stuff that you're going to be working with is going to be based off your constitution, so you want to have as high of a constitution as you can. Skill proficiencies, you start with 2, acrobatics, athletics, deception, intimidation, perception, sleight of hand, or stealth. Maybe you're going to play a pugilist that has a high dex and can sneak around. You get simple and improvised weapons, so you can basically turn anything into a weapon, and they're going to talk a little bit more about that in the description below. And then you choose one type of gaming set because they're found in like fighting pits and things like that. And you do have training in light armor, and there are some choices that you have to make if you're going to use light armor or not, based off of some of the magic items and some of the abilities that you might want to take. Okay, so we've got our table here. It talks about first level and multi-class. And I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the multi-class options that you can take with this. So the pugilist has 2 shticks, fisticuffs and moxie points. Moxie points are kind of like the monk's focus points. They don't get as many points as the monk does, but they can get them back pretty quickly. And then the fisticuffs is basically like your unarmed strike die. This actually goes up faster than the monk, and it goes all the way up to a 2d6. I don't know why they went from a 1d6 to a 2d6. This is an average of a 7. This is an average of a 6.5. It's really not that much of a difference. It's a little bit, but it's not too much. Minimum damage off of this is 2. The minimum damage off of this is 1. So little statistics. They do list all the different things, and we're going to go through each one of those. So the first one they talk about is fisticuffs. So fisticuffs is essentially your base fighting ability, and it gives you a couple of different abilities that you can use. So you have been given mastery over combat styles that use unarmed strike and pugilist weapons, which are defined as simple melee weapons and improvised weapons. It's essentially the same thing as monk weapons, but you can pick a chair up, and you could use a chair. You could pick up a pan and use a cast iron pan or a skillet or whatever you want, a crate, whatever. And then you gain the following while you are unarmed or wielding only pugilist weapons, and you are wearing light or no armor and not wielding a shield. So these are not shield wielders, and you can see back up here in the base descriptions, it's only light armor, not shields. So this is not a shield class. You're going to need to have both hands free. So you get to make bonus unarmed strikes. You can make an unarmed strike as a bonus action. So starting at first level, you get your die, and you get a D8, and you can make one attack, and then you can make a bonus attack. And here's unarmed strike. So and you can ignore most of this because you get your pugilist die. So fisticuffs die. You can roll 1d8 in place of the normal damage of your unarmed strike or pugilist weapons. This die changes as the pugilist levels, as shown in the fisticuffs column of the pugilist feature table. So the damage then goes from 1, which is what it is here in unarmed strike. So the bonus to the roll is your strength modifier plus your proficiency bonus, and then the damage is bludgeoning, and it's 1 plus your strength modifier, except the pugilist used this die. So this is going to be 1d8 plus your strength modifier. And then you have improved improvisation. So your talent for turning everything into a weapon allows you to use the mastery properties of improvised weapons. all improvised weapons count as having the sap mastery property for you, which is if you hit a creature, the creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll. Basically, you're stunning them. So you could pick up a cast iron skillet and slam them on the head. Think of it a lot like a Jackie Chan movie, where Jackie Chan picks up a lot of different stuff and uses it. Then also at level 1, you get Iron Chin while you are wearing light or no armor and not wielding a shield. You're not going to be using a shield anyway. Your base armor class, and when I do a video about armor class, I'm going to talk about the deal with armor class and what it means and its definitions. And this part right here, when they use the word base, that means the start. So your base armor class is equal to 12 plus your con modifier, not your dex modifier, your con modifier. So this essentially is 1 less than mage armor. And what that means is you don't really need to wear armor, because when you wear studded leather, it's 12. So you don't really need it. Now, you can wear armor that's magical, and it will actually bump up faster than this once it's magical. All right. At level 2, you get Moxie, which is essentially equivalent. It's not the same, but is equivalent to your focus points that a monk would get. So you have experience of beating the odds. Given you Moxie, you can channel it in the midst of battle. So your level determines the number of points you have, and the table up here says how many points you have, all the way down to 12 at 20th level. So at first level, you start with none, and then you get 2 points at second level. But like I said, these are pretty easy to get back. So you can spend these points to enhance or fuel certain pugilist features. You start with 3. Brace up, 1-2 punch, and stick and move. When you expend a point, it's unavailable until you finish a short rest or a long rest, at the end of which you regain all expended points. So you get all these back after a short rest. They've got all these classes now that get things back after a short rest. So brace up, so you can use a bonus action. Now remember, if you use this bonus action here, you're not going to be using it for this unarmed strike that you get up there. And that's part of the fisticuffs. So brace up, you use a bonus action, and you expend a point. When you do so, you roll your die, which at first level or at second level is going to be a D8, and you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to the number rolled plus your level and your con modifier. And these temporary hit points vanish if they remain after 10 minutes. So they don't last until a long rest or until they're gone. They only last for 10 minutes. So that is a thing that's there that you do have to pay attention to. It doesn't make it super powerful. They are kind of temporary hit points, but it is quite a bit. So, at second level, you're going to be getting 4.5 points from your die, plus 2, 6.5, plus probably 2 or 3, so 8 or 8.5 or 9. So, that could be a substantial increase to your hit points. You also get 1-2 punch. You can expend 1 Moxie point to make 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action, which is essentially equal to Flurry of Blows. Flurry of Blows is a focus point, and you can make 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action. And then you get Stick and Move. You can use a bonus action and expend 1 Moxie point to make an unarmed strike and take the dash or disengage action. So, and it's a bonus action, so you could use your unarmed strike, then you could use your bonus action and expend a Moxie point to disengage, and then you could use your move at that point. So they don't get disengage or dash as a bonus action like the monk does or like the rogue does. They just get the stick and move, and they have to spend a point. So not as powerful as the monk, but pretty close. So then also at level 2, we get bloodied but unbowed. So when you take damage, take a reaction, and you regain all your Moxie points. If you are bloodied when you take this reaction, you also get temporary hit points equal to 4 times your Pugilist level. So at level 2, that starts out at 8. And then these temporary hit points vanish if any remain when you finish a short rest. Once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a short rest or a long rest. So again, another way to get all your points back. And by the time you've used all your points, you might be bloodied and you might need to use this. And then at level 2, we also get Swagger Streak. When you fail a strength, dexterity, constitution, or charisma check, that's a lot of checks, you can expend a moxie point to attempt to swagger your way to success. Roll your fisticuffs die and add the number to the ability check, potentially turning it into a success. If the ability still fails, you regain the expended moxie point and can't use this feature again. So you might as well just use it if you fail. So and it's when you fail. So the DM will say you failed, and I go, okay, I'm going to use a moxie point. And if it still fails, then you didn't really use it. So you might as well use it every time. This is very powerful. I find this a little overpowered. But again, you can only use this once every short rest. But there's a whole bunch of like panic button utility that this character has that they can use almost every combat, which is great. All right, at 3rd level, you get Heavy Hitter. And at 3rd level, we're going to go back up to the table here. At 3rd level, we are still at a D8 and we're still at 2 points. So we'll kind of keep track of that. So we get Heavy Hitter. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can use both the damage and your choice of grapple and shove. Grapple or shove. So you can't use both, but it's one or the other. So this is very similar to the feat Grapple. The Grappler. So, and I've got that one up right here. So when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike as part of an attack, on your turn, you can use both the damage and grapple options. You can use this benefit once per turn. Now, I'm going to talk about that in context when we get to the feat part. But this one is grapple or shove, which means you can knock somebody prone. So maybe you can do a calf kick, or you could sweep them, and they'll go down. And then you get your Pugilist subclass. There's a bunch of really great subclasses. You could, one of the subclasses allows you to focus as a striker, and one of them allows you to focus as a grappler. So, and then there's a couple other ones that are pretty cool. I'm not going to go over those. Those are separate videos. Level 4, we get our ability score improvement or a feat. I always suggest taking a feat. And of course, we're probably going to take grappler because there's some things in there that we want. Also at level 4, we get Dig Deep. You can use a bonus action to dig deep. For 10 minutes, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, and ignore the effects of exhaustion levels less than 6. And exhaustion is a thing with this class too. You can get bonuses if you are exhausted. And this is kind of like a barbarian ability, just to take a ton of damage. So once you use this feature, you can't do so until you finish a long rest, unless you gain 1 level of exhaustion to restore your use. So you can actually give yourself exhaustion to get this back, which I think is pretty cool. It's very powerful because then you are going to be walking around with some exhaustion if you do that, but then you can just turn this on as a bonus action and not worry about it. At 5th level, we do get an extra attack, which is great. So we attack twice instead of once. So you could attack twice, and then as a bonus action, you could use your 1-2 punch, and you could get the 2 bonus actions. Basically, very similar to how a monk does all of this. All right, so at level 5, we also get Haymaker. When you make an attack with an unarmed strike or pugilist weapon, you can expend 1 moxie point. And at 5th level, we are looking at 3 moxie points, and we're at a D10 for our fisticuffs die, which is pretty cool. So, you can expend 1 moxie point to swing with Wild Abandon on a hit, regain the expended moxie point, and you deal maximum damage with that attack. So why would you not do this? Because you can do it as many times as you have moxie points, and if you keep hitting, you can just keep doing it, which is just awesome. So that's kind of where a lot of this big damage comes in. And then Moxie-fueled fists at level 6. Whenever you deal damage with your unarmed strike or an attack with an improvised weapon, you can deal your choice of force damage or normal damage. And this is similar to the monk. At level 7, we get down but not out. So when you use your bloodied but unbowed, which is way up here at level 2, where we can regain our moxie points and maybe get some temporary hit points. So while you are bloodied, so this is only while you're bloodied, you can add a bonus to the damage of your unarmed strikes and attacks with pugilist weapons for the next minute. The bonus equals your con modifier plus the number of levels of exhaustion you have. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again unless you finish a long rest. So this is where the exhaustion levels come in, because you can get bonus to damage, but you have to be bloodied to do this. So you have to be taking damage. So this character, even though you can get a pretty ridiculous armor class, you actually want to take some hits. You want to get bloodied so that you can turn some of this stuff on. At level 9, we're getting School of Hard Knocks. So once per turn, you can deal an extra D12 damage when you hit with an unarmed strike, period. Or attack with a pugilist weapon. So that's once a turn, one attack, you just get that. And that's a turn, not a round. So keep that in mind, because there are some of these, some of the subclasses that allow you to use reactions. So the damage is the same type by the weapon or unarmed strike. You can forgo this extra damage to apply one of the following effects. So we got some things we can do. We can endanger, so the next time the creature is hit by an attack, the attack deals maximum result of the attack's damage dice rather than rolling. And we can provoke. The creature has disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than you, the pugilist, until your next turn. So a little extra. At level 10, we get Herculean, and we get 3 things. So our strength score is doubled for carrying capacity. Pillar Breaker, when you hit an object with an unarmed strike, the hit is a critical hit. And Unmatched Athlete, we double our jump distance. Now, my question is, will this apply to the jump spell? I don't know. I'm just going to put that out there for now. At level 10, we get Shake It Off. At the start of each of your turns, you can remove 1 level of exhaustion on yourself or end one of the following conditions: blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, poisoned, restrained, or stunned. That's insane. Once you use this, you can't use it until you finish a long rest, unless you take a level of exhaustion to restore your use of it. So, you know, you could nix out one of these, and you could use it even if you've already used it, to nix one of these out and then take a level of exhaustion, which feeds back into, or could feed back into, down and out. So some of these things have connections, and I like that these abilities have connections to each other. At level 13, we get Dig Deeper. You can use a bonus action to dig deeper for 1 minute. You have all the benefits of your Dig Deep, which is way back up here. So that's the resistance stuff. And you can use your School of Hard Knocks twice per turn instead of once. And that one is this one, where we only can use this 1d12 once per turn. So twice per turn, if you get more than one attack. And then at level 14, and once we use this, we can't use it again unless we finish a long rest. We can use it twice at level 20. At level 14, we're Unbreakable. You have advantage on strength, dexterity, and con checks. Additionally, whenever you make a saving throw and fail, you can expend 1 moxie point to re-roll it, and you must use the new roll. So this one's a good one. Level 15 is Pugnacious. When you roll initiative, you can remove 1 level of exhaustion on yourself and regain your use of Down But Not Out, Dig Deep, and Shake It Off. Once you use this feature, you can't do so for a long rest. Level 18 is Fighting Spirit. When you are reduced to 0 but not killed, you get to drop to 1 instead. This is kind of like the orc, half orc. When you gain temporary hit points equal to half your maximum, regain all your expended moxie points and have resistance to all damage. So you just get knocked down and you come right back up. You go all Hulk Hogan roid rage and come right back up. And then you can't use that. You can only do this once per long rest. You get a boon at 19, and then at level 20, which is the capstone ability, Hale and Hardy, you get peak physical condition. Your strength and constitution each increase by 2 to a maximum of 23. When you finish a long rest, so sleep it off, and have exhaustion condition, you lose all levels of exhaustion. This normally is cumulative, and finishing a long rest only removes 1 level. So you have a bunch of ways of getting rid of exhaustion. Then you have Vim and Vigor. When you finish a short rest, you regain hit points equal to twice your Pugilist level, which is 40 points at this point. That's just free. All right, that was a lot. This guy gets a lot of abilities, and that is not counting any of the subclass abilities that are there. So just a ton of stuff. Now, let's talk a little bit about species for this. Obviously, the Goliath, we want to talk about the Goliath. And I would say either Frost Giant or Hill Giant. So we can knock things prone, or we can do a little bit of extra damage and reduce their speed. Those are two great options. Stone's Endurance might be okay, but I like, because it's all about control and grappling and things like that. I like these two options there. So obviously that one. Human, this is another great choice because we get 2 origin feats. So, I would say for origin feats that you want to take Lucky just to add a bunch of resource into the character. Grab a background that gives you Lucky. And if you're a human, take Lucky and Tough so that you can just increase your hit points to massive amounts of levels. All right, for feats, obviously Grappler. So we get a bump to our strength or dex. That's great. We get Punch and Grab. So let me say something about Punch and Grab. So let's go all the way back down here where we were at level 2 with, where was it here? With Heavy Hitter. So when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can use both the damage and your choice of grapple or shove. So when you hit a creature, you can use shove, and that's going to be a check. I mean, if you're a Goliath, you're just going to knock them down. But shove does not really have a size limit on it. It's one. I'm sorry. It does. It's one size larger than you. So you can have an enlarge spell on you and go with it. But you can use shove. And with this one, you could use the grapple. So you could knock them prone and you could grapple them all at the same time. You can only do that once per turn because of what Grappler says, but you can do that all at once. Basically, it's like pinning somebody down and going into the full mount and then just going at them. You also get attack advantage. You have advantage on attack rolls against creatures grappled by you. And then, one of the best features of Grappler is Fast Wrestler. You don't have to spend extra movement to move a grappled creature that is your size or smaller. So you can just grab them and just go. And if you're a Goliath, you can be large. So you can grab large things and go. And the reason that's important is, like, if a druid is in your party and they cast Wall of Thorns, and you can grab them and you can just rip them through the Wall of Thorns. All right, Street Justice is another great feat that goes along with this. So again, we get a bump to our strength and dex. We can do Headlock, so allies have advantage on attack rolls against a creature grappled. And if you have both Street Justice and Grappler, you have advantage and all of your allies have advantage. We get the Sturdy Knot, so when we use chains, manacles, or rope to bind a creature, we can add our proficiency bonus to the DC to escape. And then we get this Tough Talk, which is dependent on charisma, and charisma isn't necessarily the dump stat for this class. So there is that. Now, a class to dip into, I would say, would be Fighter. I do like the Fighter. The Banneret Fighter might not be too bad. The Battle Master is another one to think about. But I think the big reasons for Fighter, one, are to get some weapon masteries, to get the second wind, and to get the action surge. With the Battle Master, some of these maneuvers are based off of weapons. So some of them are not, however. So like Commander Strike, when you take the attack action, yada, yada, yada. Disarming when you hit a creature with an attack roll. That one's a good one. Distracting is an attack roll. Like one of my favorite ones is Menacing, so you win a creature with an attack roll. So this is actually a pretty good one that you could dip into. I would only dip into like 3 levels of this. Now, magic items. So let's talk about some magic items here. Insignia of claws. So this is where you want to be thinking about whether you're going to be doing unarmed strikes or whether you're going to be using that weapon or not. And there's some magic items that are in there, and there's a couple of weapons that you could be using. I'll talk about those probably in another video. So you kind of have to decide whether you're going to use a weapon, and then it'll, you'd have a magic weapon, or you can use some of this stuff. So Insignia of Claws from Tyranny of Dragons. While wearing the insignia, and it doesn't require attunement, you gain a +1 attack to attack rolls and damage when you make unarmed strikes. And they're considered magical. That's nasty. We've got Wraps of Unarmed Power. These are in the Dungeon Master's Guide. They come in +1, +2, and +3. While you're wearing them, you have a bonus to attack rolls and damage rolls with your unarmed strikes. Awesome. And those strikes deal force damage or normal damage, depending on what you want. We've got the Eldritch Claw Tattoo. This one comes from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And the big one is magical strikes. While the tattoo is on your skin, your unarmed strikes are considered magical for the purposes of overcoming immunity and resistance, and you gain a +1 bonus to attack rolls and damage rolls. That stacks with all that other stuff. And you get this Eldritch Maw, so you could be attacking from 15 feet away and doing an extra d6. And this is an uncommon. I don't know why it's based off of the tattoo coverage, I guess. So, but that doesn't really matter. You do have to attune to this, however. And the last one I'm going to point out does come from the Pugilist class, and it is the Leather Jerkin. And this is why you might want to think about not taking armor, because, and this is going to be a magic item that is going to be used by a bunch of different classes, like the Bladesinger, which I just did a video about. So Leather Jerkin is not armor. You have a bonus to armor class while you are not wearing armor and wearing this garment. It's a garment. This bonus is determined by its rarity. You can use a shield and still gain the benefit of this magic item. So if we have a legendary +3 Leather Jerkin, we get +3 to our base armor class, and we can wear bracers of defense. So so remember, way back at the beginning of this, we looked at the Iron Chin, where you get a base armor class of 12 plus your con modifier. So let's say your con modifier is 3, so that's 15. And then we've got a +2 Leather Jerkin, that's 17. And then we've got a Ring of Protection, that's 18. And bracers, that's 20. Bracers of defense, that's 20. Because you can wear bracers of defense with this because it is a garment. It is not armor. So, all in all, again, I think this, for a player, this is an easy A. An easy A. However, for a DM, it's a B. This class, I'm going to have to play with this class or have somebody play it and play test it out. I'm sure it's been play tested out. It is pretty redunculous what you can do with this, and it gets even more redunculous when the subclasses get added in. So, all right, that is the video that I have for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody later.